Man.
And thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you back, man. What's been new with you?
Just working, brother. Just working. Building new fat stacks and new toys, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same here, man. Just trying to keep busy, man. But being busy is better than not being busy. So can't complain about that. So you've been on the job hunt lately, haven't you?
Yeah,
Yeah, how's that been going?
it's definitely going. It's a long and arduous process with a lot of things moving and pretty fast, but it is what it is. So I'm not too terribly worried about it, but it's a process, man. It's just like anything else. It takes a long time to get everything done, and everybody wants to do 5 and 6 and 7 interviews and hands-on
Yeah,
practicals and everything else, man. And it's a lot of a lot, and it's not always reasonable or even remotely effective, in my honest opinion, humble opinion, I guess
I
you
mean,
could
that's
say.
that's interesting. Like even at like the principal level, with which you're at, you still have to do take homes and all of that kind
Oh
of
yeah,
stuff.
man. You don't get away from that. It actually gets worse the higher up you get. It don't get better, it gets worse, man.
Oh man.
Yeah, people want to make sure that you're worth your money, man. You ain't you
Yeah,
ain't you ain't
exactly.
skating.
I kind of feel like they also do that to keep engineers from jumping between companies. Like they kind of collude together and say, "Hey, we're going to make the interview process so annoying that you're just going to want to stay here."
Well, I mean, they some companies have been sued for doing something very similar to that, um, and they did get into quite a bit of trouble, to be honest. Um, but it is what it is at the end of the day. Sorry.
Right,
Um, but I mean, companies are going to keep doing whatever they want to do, and it
yeah,
is what it is. And there's nothing any of us can do about it, and there's nothing any of us are going to be able to do to get away with it. At the end of the day, certain companies are just going to continue to do whatever they want, however they want, the way that they want to do it, and they'll keep paying the fines and the fees, and um, they'll keep outsourcing with the H series and the EA series, and they'll just keep doing whatever it takes to get their metrics, man. And the companies keep getting headcount cut. It's typically, you know, chop shop, bunch of H series, bunch of E series, and a bunch of locals. Almost the entire European presence of every business is being annihilated right now because of the excessive taxes. So I mean, they're going to keep chopping. They're cutting costs, and European employees are the most expensive by a landslide. So they're getting chopped left and right because the taxes alone. I keep warning people about it. It's like, look, you think all these extra benefits and these perks and all these taxes they have to pay on your behalf is fantastic, and it sounds great on paper. It sounds wonderful on paper for you until it's not, and you
right,
keep looking at it as an employee from your perspective instead of considering even for an iota of a moment the pain point from the employer's perspective. What do you think the employer is going to do when they have to pick between survival and you?
yeah,
Think for
exactly,
a moment that they're going to pick you over themselves? Are you out of your mind? Nobody's going to wonder bread for you. Are you crazy?
exactly.
And it's just going to keep happening, man. And I keep watching the fallout, and I keep chuckling, dude. Like, eventually people are going to understand that companies, they don't care about you, they care about themselves, and in all fairness, they have to. The
Right.
companies have to care about themselves because nobody else will. When's the last time you saw the government go out of their way to try to save companies from failure?
Yeah, I guess besides the banks.
Yeah, like nobody cares if a company fails. Look at the 56% of all small businesses in America that never opened back up. Did you see them jump through hoops to make sure that they survived? No, man, they cut them all.
Exactly. I think like it's important, like even as a software engineer, to look at it from the company's perspective when they're hiring you. Like, why are you there? Like, what is their incentive to hire you? Is to make money in some form or fashion. If you're not providing value to them, you're on the cutting board.
Yeah,
Pretty much. That's what happened to Twitter.
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, those people from Twitter specifically, those guys, they had the misfortune of being incompetent in a great mass. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And unfortunately for them, Elon went into survival mode the second he bought the company because they thought they'd be cute and clever by pushing against the company and try to make it fail. And as I cordially reminded people, trying to hurt Elon by hurting the company's revenue is only going to guarantee that more people get laid off. And that is exactly what happened. When they attacked the baseline revenue, the first thing Elon did was cut half the staff. And when those people pushed back, oh, boo-hoo, blah, 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 blah. Well, you shouldn't have tried to fight your own boss and try to sabotage your own company. That was your own making. Another perfect example is what just happened 2 days ago when they tried to sabotage a contractually guaranteed conversation and contractually drafted written form contract between, what was his name? The guy that made the movie What is a Woman? It's Matt Walsh, I think. But he had a contract with Twitter, an actual written contract with Twitter, where they paid to have a specifically dedicated advertisement space for a specific period of time. And then people at the company lied and said that Elon reneged on the deal. They actually lied about Elon saying that he changed his mind. And then the reality is that he didn't. And so, big shocker, Elon immediately fired a shit ton of people because they created a massive legal liability for the business.
Right.
And I just keep telling people, it's like, look, man, you can't just lie about what your boss said. You can't just do whatever you want. You don't own the company. You work for the company. Your position is to do what the company needs you to do to make the business successful. If you're not there for the business, get out. Get out immediately. Because all you're going to do is hurt your coworkers. You're going to hurt their friends. You're going to hurt their families. You're going to hurt their loved ones. You're going to hurt their kids. Because guess what? Instead of 5% getting cut or 10% getting cut, 85% got cut. And then more people just got cut. You're not helping anybody by sabotaging a business. Because here's the other catch-22, genius. That company is owned in a portfolio that's owned by everything from firefighters to teachers to ditch diggers. And in your infinite stupidity, you're now hurting the teachers and the firefighters who had nothing to do with Elon whatsoever. They just happen to have that stock in their portfolio. And guess what? If you cause a massive sell-off of the stock because of your continued selfish behavior, you're going to do even more damage to their portfolio. Because it's not just held as an individual stock. It's held in ETFs, a shitload of ETFs. If you actually look it up and take 10 seconds out of your selfish day to look at the damage you're going to do to other people other than yourselves. And it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. Oh, yeah, we're going to tear this company down because of X, Y, Z. Do you know how much damage you're going to do? That damage comes with a B attached. And I don't just mean you, honey.
Yep. And then, once all these other companies who were kind of going against them, once they saw he was able to chop so much staff and keep the game going.
You started the mass layoffs. All those geniuses at Twitter. You are the reason why hundreds of thousands of people have been cut. Because when Twitter had to make the cuts, not they wanted to make the cuts, they had to make the cuts. Read between the lines. Elon openly said in the interview, we had 90 days, and I either had to fire half the staff or I had to shut the business down. Oh, and by the way, you didn't just jeopardize everybody at Twitter. You jeopardized everybody at Twitter, everybody at Tesla, everybody at SpaceX, everybody at Solar City. Because, by the way, Elon owns that too. And all those shares were up for stake. All those shares were collateral. All those companies were at risk. You didn't just jeopardize your own job. You jeopardized another 100,000 jobs. That's your infinite selfishness. Your infinite selfishness, you said, I will get what I want or I'm going to burn the whole place down. And that's exactly what you almost did. You almost put 100,000 people out of jobs. And guess what? That would have been 100,000 people that could have potentially lost their houses. Statistically speaking, on 4.2 people, that would be 420,000 people that would be potentially homeless. That's what you did. That was your arrogance, your ignorance, and your selfishness. And it is beyond mind-boggling that anybody, literally anybody, would want to put that many people at risk. just the number of children at risk. It's just mind-shattering how selfish you have to be to decide that. Oh, and forget grandma, forget all the public service workers, the teachers. Like, let's just ignore them for a second for the 500,000 other people. Let's forget the fact that there's 148 million actively working people and another like 40% more that are retired. So 200 and something plus million people were impacted, 2/3 of the country, by your selfish actions. And, 4 or 5%, that doesn't sound like a lot to a hit to a portfolio until you realize, 4 or 5% is the difference between being able to retire this year and being able to retire 2 years from now. Oh, and that was before all the other stocks took a hit, which you caused. And so you caused a cascading effect where the NASDAQ tanked 60%. And by the way, those, 10, 15, 20 major stocks that are of that collectively make the precursor of pretty much the entire NICE 500, 20, 30 stocks, all of them impacted because of the decisions of a handful of people that decided to cause an internal riot, that caused a mass layoff, that caused a cascading effect where it caused mass layoffs across the entire tech sector. And it's cascading. Yeah. Because it's like I said, if you actually look at the businesses, they're doing just fine. What they did was painted a picture of, well, we have a justification for doing layoffs now because another publicly traded company did layoffs. And if they did it, so can we. But you see, if they hadn't started the first layoff, there wouldn't be all of them, because you have to have the first one and they have to have a legitimate business case. And you gave them one. And now that they have a legitimate business case, now everybody else can say, oh, well, because they had to lay off, well, we're in the same market conditions, we have to lay off. And then, oh, well, because those two laid off, I need to lay off. What they're really saying is, I have a perfect opportunity to cut a bunch of underperformers or non-performing entire teams or business structures and just 86 the entire group and give them minimal benefits, minimal payouts, terminate my liabilities, exude myself from any forms of litigations by saying we cut you because we had to, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. Key term is had to, because of market conditions.
Yep. All the companies working in lockstep, they can do stuff they couldn't do in isolation.
They can't do it in isolation, but they can do it in lockstep. And that's exactly what happened. And it's been a slaughter. But if you look at the actual numbers, all they've done is raise the GRE. That's all they've done. Nothing else. Is they just raise the GRE by terminating non-performers and getting rid of projects that haven't performed. That's it.
And then, what do you think? Where do you think all of these people are going to end up? There's like a huge overflow. Yeah,
they're going to end up unemployed because on top of being out of the business temporarily, they've been out for 3 to 7 months, 9 months, and on top of that, AI is moving in.
Yeah.
Because now that they can shove AI for low cost, you're talking, I'm about to go build 15 AI. Like, I got a data center right there. Like, I'm about to walk in there and I'm about to build about 15 AI back to back to back to back to back. And then I'm going to leverage one of my AI to train my other AI. And I can do that for like the first one for a couple $100. And then all the other ones I can train for free. And so I don't have to worry about anything. And on top of that, I've eliminated any future potential needs for a shitload of outsourcing well in advance of actually needing it. And on top of that, I have practically unlimited access to information. There's a lot of outsourcing that I'll never even need to do. A lot of consulting I'll never need to do. A lot of questions I'll never need to ask anyone because I can just ask an AI. And again, you can do that for a couple $100. A lot of these mediocre performing employees are about to be annihilated.
Yeah.
And it's like I've continued to say, there is, in fact, a limit to cost basis and diminishing returns. And there are hard break-evens for fast food workers and minimum wage employees. That was $10.57. That was $10.57 an hour, U.S., collective cost. The reason why $7.25 was fine was because the 1.4x multiplier on that to 1.2x, which is the real cost in most cases, 1.2x multiplier still puts you barely under the cost basis of what would cost more to buy a robot. Now that it's at $10 and $15 an hour, it's cheaper to buy a checkout kiosk, a self-checkout kiosk, which, by the way, it's way faster. Like, I just went and bought these. I bought 3 drinks, and I put them down, boom, boom, boom. Instantly scanned. I'm checked in. I'm checked out. I don't even walk up to the employee-guided station anymore. It's a waste of my time. Like, I want to get in and get out fast. Like,
Exactly.
I wish every place had a self-checkout. Like, I don't want an employee to help me. I want to help myself because you're not motivated for some reason, and I'm not interested in finding out why or interested in solving the problem. If you don't want a job, that's fine. Let the robot do it. That's fine by me, completely fine by me. But the argument I've made repeatedly for the past decade plus, going on 2 decades now, back when I was in high school, was gas stations, fast food places, restaurants, those aren't jobs for adults. Those are jobs for kids. That's what they're there for. You're not supposed to be 35 and working at Sonic. Not unless you're in white-collar management as a regional director or something. That's for kids. It's a job for kids. You're supposed to be going after trade skills. You're supposed to be going after, like, STEM field, nursing, like technology jobs, engineering, like trade skills, like plumbing and electrical. There's a massive shortage there. They're making 6 figures out the door day one in some cases. Like underwater welder, I good luck finding one if you can. If you can. You just show up and be like, yo, I'm underwater welding certified. And that's it. Like, you start that day, period.
Like, that's really how you make money, just thinking ahead of the economic trends. You know, everybody's parents like, go to college, go here.
Like, I've already got a track set up for all of my kids. All of them are going to learn 4 trades each. Yeah. They're all going to learn the same 4 trades: plumbing, electrical, HVAC, and welding. All 4 of them, daughters included. Because if you can do all 4, you're punching a 7-figure ticket, period.
Yeah.
Period. That's it.
And those are skills you need, like, you know, if something breaks in your house, you know what I mean?
You can fix it. Exactly. Not just in your house, but everybody's house.
Everybody's house, yep.
And it's a complete disaster, man. But it's just like with tech. It's like I keep telling people, it's like, look, you're gonna end up in a bad way, like a really bad way, really fast. And it drives me nuts, man. Because I keep trying to get people to understand. It's like, look, there's only so much you can do as an engineer. There's only so much you can do as a security person if you haven't put in the legwork. And there's only so many things you can do effectively. Like, I had somebody today that jumped into a chat room, and they were asking about what's the difference between a security engineer and a detection engineer. And I'm like, I'm taken aback just by the fact that you could ask that question in the first place. And they are asking such broad questions, like, how do you configure a security device as a security engineer? And I'm like, well, that's an extremely broad question. What devices?
Right.
You don't even understand the questions to ask because you don't know what you're doing. You're so lost. You don't even understand what a security engineer does. And the first thing you need to understand as a security engineer is security engineers are completely different organization to organization. They're tech stack specific. They're data model specific. There's a distinctive difference between the tech stacks you use, the data-centric engineer and a perimeter-centric engineer. There are 2 very different implementations. And that's all based on what the objective is of the business. But you have to understand that. And that's what's wrong with so many engineers in the security field is they don't understand anything about the enterprise, much less the business operation. And it's a complete train wreck. And I just keep watching these disasters unfold in real time. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why are you here? You obviously have no idea what you're doing whatsoever. You can't just plug and play an XDR technology stack or a DLP technology stack and call it a day. Like, this is why the number 1 cause of breach for 10 years plus running is systems misconfigurations. It's because none of you have a systems background. Is that really surprising? The guy that doesn't know how to work on a car. Gee golly, the number 1 reason why the car keeps breaking down is because the car is not properly maintained. Well,
Mhm.
shit, Sherlock, I think if you actually learn how to maintenance a car for a change, it may not break down as much. It's a wild idea. Oil change, radiator fluid flush, transmission flush, basic maintenance, spark plugs replacement. Like, do you know how to plug in an OBD2 reader? These are all basic mechanical skill sets, basic systems. How are you going to protect a car if you don't even understand why it turns on when you turn the crank? Like, do you understand how the wheel shaft works? Like, do you understand how the ignition switch is connected to the car's like primary computer? Like, do you understand anything about these cars? Anything. Same thing with security stacks. A car is an idiot-proof vehicle. You start talking enterprise technology stacks, oh my God, they're infinitely more complex than just a car.
Yep.
And I just keep laughing, man. I just keep laughing and laughing and laughing because I'm just like, this is not going to end any other way but bad. Very, very bad. Because there's
Right.
nothing we can do at the end of the day except watch the train wreck crash. Because here's what's going to happen. And I keep saying this, and people keep blowing it off. This is what's going to happen. I've nailed every single one of these 100%. There's going to be a license requirement soon. Maybe not this year. Maybe not next year. But I'm betting more than willing to bet a year's salary within the next 10 years. There's going to be a licensure requirement. And I'm not talking a certification or a college degree. I'm talking like a medical board,
Yeah.
like a state board type exam where you have to go through the board to be a security person because the legal ramifications, the liability ramifications, the criminal ramifications are now very real. We just had our first CISO go to jail, successfully prosecuted. He's going to jail. He's going to do time. He's going to face civil liability.
Well, what did he do?
Well, for starters, they had a bug bounty program that wasn't so much a bug bounty program as more of a cover for a breach. And then on top of that, they paid it and then they lied about it, which a lot of companies will do. They'll pay the ransom and they'll lie about it, or they won't report it, which is just the same. As far as the state's concerned, there is no distinctive difference between lying about there being a breach and not reporting it. They don't really make a distinction between the two, unless it's, of course, under oath, and it's perjury on top of, non-disclosure. But it's a huge liability either way. And now that CISOs are being sued, it's only a matter of time before the architects are next. It's going to start with the principals and the chief architects and the senior architects, the senior architect SEs, the subject matter experts. And then from there, it's going to boil its way down to the seniors, and then to the mids, and then to the junior architects, and then senior engineers. And then it's just going to continue to boil its way down. And everyone's going to share in the liability, and everyone's going to be required to carry some form of errors and omissions insurance. And it's going to be a multi-million-dollar policy, and you're going to have a license. And if you make mistakes, it's going to ding your license. And you get enough dings, you get kicked out the industry. You can't practice anymore. Because that's ultimately going to be what the companies push for. And that's going to be what the boards legislate for. And that's what the companies are going to push legislators to legislate too, is, hey, you want to mess around? Cool. Fantastic. We'll ding your license. You make enough mistakes, we're kicking you out of the industry.
I think the only thing that might be holding them back is just their desire for cheap labor. You know what I mean? Like,
there's no cheap labor. Not in this industry. Globally, it's expensive. And every time they outsource it to a country, costs go up.
yeah.
They just raise the bar geographically. And they're running out of countries they can outsource it to. And that's the thing. Eventually, they're going to get tired of outsourcing because they're tired of costs. And more specifically, they're tired of costs without the guarantees. And that's the thing. It's like if you could turn around and sue your employee for making a mistake, then all of a sudden, that ain't so bad. Hey, you got breached. Well, fantastic. We're hitting your insurance for $10 million.
Yeah, I thought, I can foresee where they try to do that, but I think that's gonna reduce the supply of programmers, and therefore they're gonna have to pay them a lot more.
Oh,
architects.
of course. But that's the thing is they've got AI to countercompensate for that. So the programmers that they do have, they're going to be augmented to effectively match the performance rates. But then they have insurance. If their bad code gets breached, they get sued. And so they have the augmentation of AI, and they're compensated dramatically more, but on a relative basis, the companies are paying about the same. But then they have the upside protection of the insurance. And so when there's a breach, they can just turn around and sue the entire engineering team.
Yeah, I think if they have that they create that antagonistic environment, then what's really stopping the engineering team from just like quitting and doing their own thing.
Well, that's the thing, is they still have to have the insurance, even if they did it on themselves, on their own. It wouldn't matter. So there's no negating it. And it's the same thing with lawyers. My question has been this: when a lawyer makes a mistake, only one person suffers. When a doctor makes a mistake, only one person suffers. On a catastrophic basis, only one person dies. When we make a mistake, hundreds of thousands to millions of people can die. So why is it that our industry is the only one that's compensated at the levels of doctors and lawyers, and yet we don't carry any liability of any kind? None. We carry no legal liability at all. But our errors and omissions can have catastrophic, countrywide, devastating impacts, as has been seen. A perfect example was the city of Augusta just got hit with a ransomware. It just got hit with a ransomware, and it got shut down. It got shut down. An entire city lost functionality because one engineer made a mistake. But that's all it took, was one engineer making one mistake. And the engineers don't give a shit because they don't carry any liability. You change that conversation by changing that perspective and attitude, all of a sudden engineers carry an immense level of risk and an immense level of interest in the success of the organization. Because all of a sudden, if something happens, they're the ones ending up in court on the defendant side with their policy and their license at stake. All of a sudden, now they carry an immense level of risk and concern about the success of the organization and the security of the data. That's the only thing that's going to change the attitude of the security industry and change the perspective of people just cheating their way to the top. When you create that legal liability, all of a sudden, nobody's going to skip leg day. All of a sudden, nobody's going to take that kid that didn't do the systems engineering. No one's going to take the risk of somebody who's never been a sysadmin because you don't have the experience. We're not going to touch you with a 10-foot pole because we're going to carry the liability, because the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get sued. And the first thing the insurance company is going to say is he was never qualified to have that job in the first place, which we all know is the same thing. That's the conversation we all share. We know it's the truth. We know it's the truth. Deep down, you know that kid who can't tell you what port RDP runs on is a legal liability to this organization. And you know it. I know it. The wall knows it. The guy that broke into the network that's sitting on his desktop right now, he knows it. Everybody and their mom knows it. Even the guy who doesn't know the port knows that he's a liability. And yet we do it anyways. Why? Because they're cheaper and there's no legal liability or ramifications whatsoever for me taking a shortcut. And the shortcuts won't stop until the penalties start.
Yeah, but I think they feel like, the per cost of engineers is cheaper without that. So, long term is more expensive. But,
no, it's not. It's way more expensive. Look at it from this perspective. What happened the last time Google got hit? What was the percentage rate lost for their stock market cap?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Most breaches range 5 to 8%. Immediate hits. Google, that's several $billion. What was it? What's their market cap right now? Like 700, 800, 900 billion or something crazy? Let me look it up real quick. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, they're $1.6 trillion according to Google. The Alphabet total market cap. And so let's see, what is that? What is that? Let me see. Where's my calculator? You know what? Forget it. I'll use my damn phone. What does that translate to? 1.6, 8%? Million, billion, trillion. Yeah, that's 8%. Million, billion, 1.6 trillion. Yeah, that was $128 billion. It took $60 to $128 billion hit. Do you think any engineer that cost $400,000 was cheap when they cause a $128 billion hit to your company?
Yeah, unfortunately, companies don't think like that. They think in terms of, immediate costs, like the fixed cost versus.
Well, it's because they don't take into consideration the cost of incompetence because they don't have to. They don't pay the legal costs. They're not paying for that. It's just a number that goes down. They don't care. They're not having to fork out $128 billion. They just lost $128 billion market cap. But that's shared equally between all shareholders. The company owner doesn't care. Oh, I'm worth a few $1 billion less. Mm-hmm. Like, you think Zuckerberg cares when his stock goes up and down? Man, it's been doing that all day, every day for the past, 15 years? He don't care.
Yeah.
You know who does care? Zuckerberg. If he gets a bill in the mail for $128 billion because he's automatically legally liable, all of a sudden he cares immensely. If we want security to matter, to actually matter, that's what you need to do. Send the bill, the whole bill. You get breached, you're liable for 100% of the market loss in cash. Even if you have to take a loan for it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't think they'll be able to find anybody to work those jobs then. I certainly
they will. There's plenty of people that'll work that job. They find brain surgeons all the time.
But to me, like the difference between a brain surgeon and, like a security professional is like there's an active like enemy coming for these secure systems. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with a brain surgeon. It's a lawyer. It's an ambulance chaser. And that's what they got the malpractice insurance for.
Yeah. I mean, they're gonna have to significantly compensate these professionals more if they want to do that.
They already do. Look at the high end engineers and how much they get paid. Look it up. The high end stock engineers, like when you start talking RSU based total comp packages, I mean you're talking $4, $5, $6, $7, $800,000. One of them that I just saw was like 1.2, 1.3 million.
Yep.
They get paid extremely well, but like I said, they carry no risk. They make more than a brain surgeon in many cases, and they carry no risk at all. And it's mind-boggling. Look at what just happened with Meta. How many billions of dollars did they spend on Metaverse? And it not go anywhere?
Yeah, that was Zuckerberg's like insistence
that project. Yeah.
Yep.
But he had people that was running that project for him. It didn't go anywhere. Should there be a legal liability when the losses are to the company are in the billions? Look at security breaches. Should the losses, when they exceed a certain dollar value, should somebody pay for that? I mean, at what point do you just let somebody skate by with gross incompetence? I mean, it's mind-boggling, man. Like, if a mechanic works on your car, right, and he doesn't screw all the bolts on for your wheel, and the tire falls off the car while it's running, you can sue that mechanic and the mechanic shop to reclaim your losses and your damages to your vehicle as well as to your person and anybody else you may injure and the road that you and the objects on it that you may damage.
Yeah.
That's at the mechanics level. That's a mechanic. We got help desk people that make more than mechanics. At what point do we hold tech people responsible for their actions?
Yeah, I'm not sure, man. But
yeah, you can't get those photos back. If you don't have a backup and that help desk guy wipes your laptop, those are gone, man. That's permanent data destruction. There's no legal liability for that. Not currently.
Yeah, I don't think it's happening anytime soon, man. It's just like,
To me, it's wild, man. It's just wild. Like I don't understand how that's even remotely fair to the people that are impacted. And it's a severe negative impact. And nobody can tell me otherwise because that's exactly what it is. I mean, not to be a stickler about it or to be a jerk or anything, but it's just it blows me away. It completely and utterly blows me away at the amount of damage that an individual can do at the individual level and just completely get away with it. Like, I'm not saying like, ha ha ha, I got away with it. But like, I mean, like, where's the hook? You get fired?
Yeah,
in
that's
the
pretty
job.
much it. People get fired. Same with politics. Politicians can do all sorts of things, like literally cause wars and kill people directly, and it's an illegal war. Nobody goes to jail. It's like, the higher up you get, the less ramifications you face for your actions, like the richer you are.
Yeah, but that's my thing though. Is like, but those are people with politicians. Not that I agree with it, because I absolutely agree. We should definitely like. I'm not saying French Revolution, but I mean, there should be like a political court where it's just like, you're a pretty shit politician. We're considering sending you to jail, like kind of level bad. But I mean, even then, politicians, they still have ramifications. There's still processes to prosecute them, and they do. From time to time, they get prosecuted. Funny enough, there's actually been there was one TikTok video floating around where the number of politicians that have been prosecuted, the data was released, and it was like 50+% either have priors or have been actively prosecuted for a variety of crimes. Now, they were misdemeanors to low level, like aggravated misdemeanors and maybe like a low count felony or something stupid. But I mean, it was nothing anybody ever gave a shit about, and they just fined them for the most
Yeah,
part. Maybe somebody did 30 days in jail or something stupid, but whatever.
yeah,
They got out in like 3 for good behavior because some blah 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 multiplier and like volunteer blah 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 that they did or whatever.
yeah.
I
I feel like
mean,
it gives us a little dog and pony show, but
yeah, they do. It's pomp and circumstance, man.
like,
It's
here's your
pomp and circumstance.
$10,000 fine for siding, legally with this corporation, but the corporation paying you millions in
Yeah,
consultation fees.
yeah. They just like chuckle and walk out the door and throw 10 grand on the table as they walk out. Like
Yeah.
they're just like, here's your fine. We'll send an invoice over for it later. Like,
It's
it's
kind of like
whatever.
a
They don't care.
it's like a
And then they
cost
get,
benefit analysis of, like,
yeah.
should I
Oh,
just
it's
eat the
just like with
fine?
HSBC when they were moving money for Iran. Like, they didn't care. Like, oh, woo, 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 you slap us on the wrist for a couple milli, whatever. We made $80 billion on these trades, like,
Yeah.
in exchanges. We don't care. Like, whatever. Ooh, boo hoo us. We have to pay a small bill, whatever. Like, they don't care. They'll do it with a high five, man. they
Like,
don't. They
with,
don't care.
with all of
But
these layoffs and things, and like all of the world events going on, like what do you see, like, as the biggest challenges to the United States over the next couple of years?
the BRICS,
Yeah.
the BRICS, people are downplaying it. And they think it's a joke. What people don't realize is the governments, as a global world's perspective, trust gold and Bitcoin more than US dollar by global consensus. They actually did a poll and they found that more people trusted Bitcoin than the US dollar. And that should tell you something.
And it's sad, but you try to tell people, nobody takes it serious. They're not going to take it serious until
It's
it's
too
in their
late.
face. Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got countries. So here's the concern. The real concern was the conversation that started about a month ago, publicly. Not the one that actually started. That was probably months or years in the making, but the one that started publicly about a month ago, where the Saudis entered public, formal conversations about adopting the BRICS currency.
Yeah.
If they adopt the BRICS currency, they specifically, the petrodollar will shift
Done. Yep.
to a hybrid currency model. If that occurs,
Hyperinflation.
the second, hyperinflation, because the second the Saudis realize the Chinese yuan, the BRICS currency collectively is backed by gold, which is what they've done. They've shifted away over the past 10 years from US bonds and moved that money into gold. India has an astronomical amount of rubles on hand for the Russian government. The Russian government have entered talks with India on what to spend that billions of dollars on because they can't move it. So what they're going to do is most likely move it into gold because they can't do anything else. And India is flush with gold. It's an astronomical amount of it. And they can't do anything else with it. And it's in their native currency. So what are they going to do with it? Like, what are they going to do with liras floating around and rubles and floating around? Like, they can't do anything. And Indian currency, what was India's currency? I can't even remember off the top of my head. Like, I don't even pay attention that much to India's currency because it hyperinflates so often. I just stopped paying attention to it. Most people in India, they hold gold as a means of currency control. Like, I don't know, man.
And
It's a
another
disaster.
factor is like, our antagonistic relationship with like Africa, and they have like a lot of resources over there. And China's really making inroads.
Oh
So
yeah. Well, that's a two-part conversation. The first part is yes, they've been moving to make massive infrastructure investments for a long time. They also just called in all their notes.
yeah,
And so the African governments have two choices. They can pay up or they can pony up. And it's going to be fun to watch. Most likely what they're going to do is they're going to forfeit the assets, which the Chinese are going to make some kind of a deal to where it's like, hey, we won't take the assets. We'll forgive the debts. In exchange, you agree to trade in our currency.
yep,
And that's Africa, like the entire continent, converted almost instantaneously.
exactly.
And
What
so,
do you, oh, go ahead.
yeah, and so once it converts, that's an entire continent. And statistically, a huge percentage of the population. Between the fact that the population-wise, BRICS controls the vast majority of population. If people haven't stopped to count people for a second, the U.S. and Europe collectively make about 400 million people apiece. And so that's 800 million people. That's not even the population of China. And so when you take into consideration that India, China, Russia, Brazil, Israel, all of Africa now, apparently, Italy is in conversations if they haven't converted already, and several other smaller European countries are going to be forced to start converting into the BRICS system simply because they have to do business with Russia, who controls the vast majority of their natural gas. That's going to shift over an astronomical amount of trade to the BRICS currency by default.
Yeah,
Because they have to. If Russia says we're not going to accept any other payment except for BRICS currency, you have to trade in that or you can't buy our gas. You can either freeze to death or you can trade in our dollar. Pick.
yeah,
What are you going to do? Like, oh, I don't want your paper money. Like, you're going to freeze to death, guy. You're literally going to die. Like, millions of people will die because you don't want to convert your currency. And the other major thing that people have forgotten about is we are the ones who violated the Bretton Woods Act. We are. We literally said we're going to do whatever we want, and we don't care how much damage it causes you back in the 60s and 70s. And that is exactly what we did. We caused an astronomical amount of damage, and then we said, this is just what you're going to do, and these are the rates you're going to accept. And they were like, well, we'll do that, but it's going to hurt us, and it sucks. Well, too bad. And that's exactly what we did. It's exactly what we said. And it's exactly how we defaulted. We've actually defaulted 4 different times, and we've destroyed 6 different currencies of our own. And it's actually kind of amazing how much damage we've done financially to ourselves and to other people because of that. But it's just what we continue to do.
yeah.
And it's only a matter of time before people are like, well, why are we listening to people that have $30 trillion in debt for money advice when they've defaulted 4 different times, 2 intentionally, 2 other times by accident. They destroyed 6 different currencies. They refused since 30 plus years ago, 40 plus years ago, to even reveal how much reserve assets they have. Oh, and by the way, they haven't had a balanced budget since like Jackson, I think it is. Like technically.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a surplus with Clinton, but that wasn't actually a balanced budget. That was just excessive taxes and a bunch of kickbacks and a couple of other clever trade craft. I mean, but there wasn't actually a balanced budget with Clinton, contrary to my belief.
The writing's on the wall. Like people are seeing a little bit of the symptoms. Like you go to the grocery store, it's significantly more expensive, but that's nothing compared to the real hyperinflation.
Dude, yeah. Like there's a reason why I started growing an astronomical amount of crops in my backyard. Like I didn't start growing buckwheat and oats because shits and giggles.
Yeah.
Because I enjoy pulling on a plow and tearing up the ground and throwing down seed and fertilizer and hand raising crops. I've got to transplant another probably 100 or 200 corn stalk. Like, I'm not doing that for entertainment. I'm doing it because I control my food supply now.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those crazy preppers like tinfoil. Oh my God, the government's poisoned our water and chemtrails. No, like I understand enough about farming, having grown up in a farm town and having grown up on a farm, to understand if there's a massive nitrogen fertilizer and a potash fertilizer shortage, because Ukraine and Mariupol expressly made the majority of those, and the off chemicals and the precursors to making those chemicals predominantly come from the Ukraine and Russia and Canada, who's in a massive shortage. You're in for a bad time.
Yeah.
You're in for a very bad time.
Interestingly enough, you remember the stories about the it was some kind of, I think it's a truck or something that overturned and the chemicals started spilling in the river.
Oh yeah, that was out in Palestine.
It actually happened in a couple of different places.
That was when they were blowing up the train tracks. That almost all happened in rural farm town areas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, almost conveniently, almost all in the middle of the food belt.
Yeah, they swept that right under the rug.
They just completely ignored it. In reality, like I said, that's a trademark of Iran. They'll use specifically ordnance charges to detonate on tracks to effectively capsize large vehicles and trains, because it interrupts logistics. People don't realize, but we actually move the vast majority of our resources by train, especially our oil, our petro, and our chemical, pharma. Most major machinery we move by train, not by truck. Truck is last mile for the most part. We very rarely move large objects more than 100 miles on truck, unless we absolutely have to.
With all of this poverty coming in and completely open borders, how are people going to protect themselves? Like a lot of people, they're not arming themselves at all. So,
it's not even about arming yourself. It's how are you going to feed yourself?
Yeah. And, even if you do have the means to feed yourself, if you don't have a secure, arms, somebody's going to take your food.
Yeah. And it's not even about that. It's, do you have the wherewithal and the knowledge to actually maintain a crop to yield? And not just to yield, but a viable yield. Because if you grow a beanstalk and you only get one bean strand off of it, you're going to need a lot of beans, man. Like, do you understand what K&P even is? Do you know what those are? Do you understand where they come from, organically or inorganically?
Yeah, unfortunately.
If you look at the average industry, like, they've been attacking farmers over and over and over and over again, because that's been a drive by the CCP. They've been attacking our food supply directly.
You're buying up the land too.
Yeah, which they've been banned from in Texas now.
Yeah,
because they've realized that they've been buying up the farmland to prevent you from growing food. This is not hard to see. Why would a foreign entity come in and only buy farmland? It's not investment property. Yeah. It's not even investment grade. Like, most companies like Vanguard doesn't buy it because it's not investment grade. It doesn't reach investment grade values or valuations or growth ratios. They can't invest in it because it would cost them more to maintain it. That's why most farmers, when they own farmland and they can't farm it, they do land leases, because that's the only way they can even break even on the taxes. Like, farmland is not a profitable business at all. If you're converting it to condominiums, then maybe, if you've already paid off the property. But that's assuming you've paid off the property and it's free and clear. Most farmers carry notes against their property and their equipment so they can continue to scale their business. Just to pay for seed, they're spending $100,000, $200,000, $400,000 a year. People don't realize how expensive seeds are. Like, Monsanto is a problem by themselves, just because of the cost that they generate between Roundup,
seeds.
Yeah, between seeds, between fertilizers that they produce and the weed killers that they produce. They by themselves are a massive, massive cost basis. John Deere does not help. And people don't realize the margins that farmers make are non-existent in most cases. I mean, you're talking 2%, 3%, 4%.
You think they're going to start utilizing like robots in mass to
They already are. They already have fully automated tractors and combines. And even with that, the margins are still practically non-existent. People don't realize how expensive liquid fertilizer is. People don't realize how expensive seeds are. People don't realize how expensive it is to sell. Oh, and by the way, The market's artificially deflated so that you can afford to buy a banana for 97 cents versus what the actual cost of production is. And then they complain about subsidies that farmers get. And I'm like, do you realize that if farmers actually needed to charge what they needed to charge, organic eggs wouldn't cost $6 a carton. They'd cost about $36 to $45 a carton.
Yep.
Food would be extremely expensive because it's hella expensive to make. I mean, just look at it from a cost basis. If you took a regular business model, just a standard 15-year horizon for all of your cost basis, and you said the land alone, 100-acre farm, not a large farm, very small actually, compared to the large-scale commercial grade, industrial grade farms. 100 acres, most farms are smaller than that. And so when you start talking 100 acres, you're talking 4,500, maybe $5,000 an acre, $6,000 an acre, depending on the crop. Now multiply that by, 100 acres. It's $450,000. But then out of the $450,000, you got to pay for everything. Seeds, $100,000, $200,000. Farm equipment, $50,000, $70,000, $100,000. Property tax, by the way, farmers have to pay property tax on their farms, which is wild.
Yeah.
And you're talking, what, 3%, 2%, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. Canaccord pears, $35,000 to $75,000. Oh, and by the way, we haven't even gotten to the weed killer or liquid fertilizer yet, or water. Water's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
And that's why you hear most farmers right now complaining about it not raining, because they're not watering their crops. They don't have any reserves. Been too many droughts. And so they're either pumping wells or they're not.
Speaking of reserves, didn't we empty our gas reserves too?
Yeah, we gave the oil away to Ukraine.
It almost feels like it's like intentional, like this administration is intentionally weakening America.
Well, he's taking 10, 20, 30 million dollars just for himself from CCP direct funds. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not one of those tinfoil hat guys, but people don't just give you 10, 20, 30 million dollars for funsies.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they have the bank. The thing is that Congress has openly come forward publicly with a committee and said, we have the bank records. We have certified from the banks that they have in fact received these funds. Like, they've proven without a shadow of a doubt from bank records and wire transfer logs through SWIFT and other systems that these funds have in fact been transferred from these organizations. It's been proven. It's an empirical fact. And I'm just mind blown. If nothing else, why hasn't someone raised the conflict of interest flag? But again, it's not my monkeys and not my circus. And ultimately, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, you can't do anything about it.
Well, I can't do anything about it. It doesn't matter because you're going to starve to death long before I have to worry about you.
Right.
We have guns, we have reloaders, we have fences, we have attack dogs, and we have food and water. We're going to be just fine. You're going to die. If you live in an urban area, you're going to starve to death. You're going to die anywhere between 3 and 15 days. And we have enough food for us to last for 6 months easily. And that's before the crops kick in. And we can hunt and fish. We're going to be fine. I'm not worried about it at all. I never have to leave my land.
Did you intentionally, you foresaw this, so you intentionally decided to get away from the cities, or was that just
No, I live out in the sticks because I hate living next to neighbors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like to be able to just live on my own and mind my own damn business. As I've told people repeatedly. I don't care what you do in your house. That's your business. But don't come into mine and tell me what to do.
Right. So, for the average person, what do you think they need to be doing?
The average person can't do shit.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking, they're not educated. So they don't even know how to maintain their own house, much less maintain a crop yield. They don't know how to hunt. They don't know how to fish. Oh, and by the way, they don't have licenses for either. And they don't have the equipment. Good luck getting a permit. Oh, and by the way, by the time you actually need to get one because you need a firearm to be able to hunt, you have to still go through the background check and the license processes, assuming that you can even find one for sale in the first place.
Yeah.
And by the way, because they've made it more difficult to do private purchases, good luck getting one on the private market. Assuming people would even be willing to sell you one in the first place, assuming the money's worth anything to begin with.
Yeah, at that point, why would I take your money for something
Yeah,
that's
why would I
protecting
take
me,
your
right?
money? What's your money going to do for me? I've got rifles. I've got hunting dogs. I've got attack dogs. I've got plenty of rounds and reloaders. There's nothing that I need from you, and there's nothing that you can offer me that I need.
Exactly. It's like we've gotten so far away from just like basic humanity, that's existed for centuries due to technology that,
Yeah, they've completely abstracted away any form of self-sustainment. It's the same reason why the Chinese created effectively the farm Gestapo in order to wipe out their urban farmers. And sorry, they're urban is city, right? I just want to make sure I'm using the right term here.
yeah, urban.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Then what's rural? Sorry, rural. Yeah, they're wiping out their entire rural farming population.
Yep.
I think it was 30, 40, 50,000 administrators. Rural administrators is the term that they're using. It's effectively a Gestapo for farmers. And they're wiping out their farmers to control who can produce their own food. And they're destroying private gardens and private farms.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Like everything's
because
gonna be these
20, 30, 50 acres is not a garden. That's a farm.
yeah,
After about half an acre, it's no longer a garden. It's a farm. After about your first acre or two, it's a small farm, a micro farm. Self-sustainment farm is the term that the FFA uses, Future Farmer Association, and the what is it? There's a federal institution.
what better way to control the population than control the food supply?
I don't have any. Yeah, well, that's exactly what they're doing. They're controlling their own population by controlling their food supply. It's the same reason why during COVID they destroyed rooftop gardens and private gardens. They wanted to control who could buy food and who couldn't.
And then, even here, like mysteriously, all these farms and, ranches are going up in smoke. Trucks are overturning with a lot of beef and chicken and all of this. Like,
Well, for the farms were intentionally destroying the crops because they were effectively ordered to.
yeah,
They were ordered to till up the ground and destroy the crop without harvest in order to get their insurance payouts. And that's what caused a major food shortage. And that was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. But the counter base to that was they said that there was no one to buy the food. And in the reality, there was absolutely people to buy the food. And now that food's gone, the reserves that most of these co-ops effectively build up, which, by the way, in most instances, most farmers have a co-op, or they're large enough to be their own co-op. And then most of those co-ops form their own banks. And then those farmers bank with those banks that are run by the co-ops, which are effectively a handful of really, really, really large farms. And then a bunch of those really, really, really large farms collectively make up several large farming banks. And then a lot of the insurance companies and everything else that farmers borrow from. So effectively, it's one bastardized economy because regular banks won't lend to farmers. One, they don't understand the business model, and two, they see way too much risk because when they actually look at the numbers, they're immediately mortified and they run. Because what are you going to do with 300 acres?
right.
You're going to break that up into lots? Like, good luck
Right.
selling the land. It's way too far from the city.
Exactly.
Oh, and, it's got cows on it. Giant ponds in the middle of nowhere.
Man, it's, we're in for a rough ride, man. Like,
it's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun. Because I'm just, like I said, I'm just getting my banjo out, man. I just got another 8-gallon, 1-gallon brewing kits and a shitload of yeast. I'm going to just keep brewing, man. I'm going to brew, make my own honey meads. And they're going to be done by the time the shit show gets here. And I'm just going to pop up in bottles, man. I'm going to sit on my front porch and drink mead and laugh.
how far are you away from like a major city? Like
major city, maybe 45 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about like a smaller town? Are you like
that smaller town's about 15, 20 minutes in the other direction.
Okay.
But that's a farm town, so I ain't got to worry about that anyways.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing, if things really, really, really went like super sideways, we'd only have to blow up the bridge.
No. Okay.
Yeah, we blow the bridge, except, well, the bridge is the only connecting point between us and the city. You blow that bridge, you'd have to drive completely around rural region all the way around the other way, which is like 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours in the opposite direction to create the loop. And
Hmm.
so, I mean,
Pretty isolated. Like.
yeah, it's a pretty
Yeah.
isolated area in that regard. So you blow the bridge and it's game over, pretty much. You can still boat across the lake, I guess, but I mean, you'd have to have a boat, which
Right.
means you'd have to have a license and you'd have to know how to do small motor repair. And by the way, you'd have to have a trailer, which you'd have to have an additional license for or an additional registration for, and you'd have to know how to drive it. So, I mean, not
Yeah.
exactly sweating on that one. But like you said, my bigger thing is I don't think that's even going to be an issue. The bigger issue is going to be people with food. People with food and people without it, just like what happened during COVID. People were running out of food and they started hitting major caloric deficits. And I point to that directly and I say, hey, look, it's completely obvious to the fact that there's a major problem. And the major problem is that the food can quite literally run out. And now that you're even remotely aware of that, which is amazing that people aren't more aware of that, that they would at least have already built up a food reserve. And most people have not, even when they were given astronomical amounts of free money.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Okay.
people still don't have a 6-month supply of food. And that's like a baseline for us. Like when we spike up, it's the 2 years.
Man, it's most people simply aren't ready, man, but it's coming.
Well, that used to be normal policy. Is people would have 1, 2, 3 years of food just in their root cellars. That was common practice, U.S. wide. That wasn't some crazy prepper thing with like MREs on the shelf. No, that was normal. Like we used to keep iodine tablets in the house. Like that was normal behavior. That's just a safety precaution. You kept several days to several weeks of water on hand. You kept a lot of
Yeah.
food on hand. You kept the ability to grow your own gardens on hand if you didn't already have an active garden already. Like these are all normal American behaviors. And then that started to drop off once the CCP started taking hold in the country, and communism, which is in the form of socialism, which is just still communism. It's Yugoslavic communism, rebranded from their Yugoslavic communism to Yugoslavic socialism, which they did in order to maintain power while abolishing communism, which they never did. And that became socialism and the socialist movements. But it's communism. And they just slowly started degrading things, going after the nuclear family, gardening, all forms of shop and self-maintenance courses, higher math, higher engineering. That's why if you look at the 60s to today, over that 60-year time frame, there's been a constant decay. We used to be the dominating force in math Olympics and everything else, and now we don't even compete anymore because we just got humiliated time and time and time again. Now, we did recently compete, but they were all Asian kids, predominantly Chinese. And so that was kind of ironic. The All-American team was pretty much all Asian.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, that happened. But, I mean, it is what it is. And it's because we stopped caring about the things that mattered, because we allowed people to tell us that it didn't matter, and we were dumb enough to believe them.
It's just like so much entertainment, you know what I mean? Like that's literally a form of mind control. Like,
Yeah,
hey, don't
well,
worry about
the Chinese have openly said when who was it? The CEO of TikTok just went before Congress, and he openly said that the American children get very different content than Chinese children. Like they've openly said that Chinese children get positive reinforcement, education reinforcement content, and Americans get anti-education, anti-positive behavior reinforcement content. It's directly correlative. They've openly said directly it's a culture war. The Chinese are only allowing their kids to get reinforcement of positive natures, and we're only getting negative natures. And that trend will continue until we fix it.
Which I don't see it because we're like in bed with the Chinese. Like all of our most of our manufacturers over there, the
Well, that's
chips
the
are,
thing. It's like that's what people think, but it's actually being moved to India.
in a way, it's kind of like the same problem. You know what I mean? Like not the exact same problem because they have a different government structure, but we
Well,
can't.
they have I think like 180 political parties, so they're the complete opposite.
Yeah,
Like they're a different kind of train wreck. Um,
like,
like
like how are we so arrogant to think like we're just going to be the managers of the world and we don't have any technical know-how? We're just shipping it everywhere else. Like at a certain point, they're going to know how to do everything, and I don't need y'all to manage us.
well, we're going to starve to death.
Yeah.
They just have to wait us out for 13 more years. The average age of our farmers are 60 plus. I don't know if you knew that or not.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Our average farmers age 60 plus. We're going to starve to death. 40% of the food supply for the world comes from us. We're not the only ones who are going to starve to death. If we don't export food, the rest of the world starves.
Yep, exactly.
Africa especially.
Wasn't
They'll
Ukraine
suffer
like a
incalculable damage.
Ukraine's a huge producer of a lot of crops as well.
Yeah. Those fields were destroyed.
Right.
In totality. They are not usable. The chemicals that they used to damage and destroy those fields, that field will not recover from. Every one of those fields that they chemically treated will not recover. You'll have to either excavate the soil and remove it completely, or you'll have to wait between 5 and 15 years for that soil to be usable again. And the runoff will be toxic. And I don't mean like ammonia runoff. I mean like you will die instantly if that contaminated water isn't high enough concentration. Like, it's not like, oh, we sprinkled some salt on it. It'll be a little salty. No, it's like those are deadly carcinogenic chemicals that will instantaneously cause significant health conditions and fatal ones with enough high dosage, like deadly level exposures. Because Russia's approach was simple but effective. Blow up their fields, blow up their factories, blow up all of their major life support systems, and make the area completely uninhabitable. Because if you have to flee in every direction, you will. And that is exactly what they did. And it was effective. It was sad. It was brutal. It was vicious. It was war. And that is exactly what the Russians have done. They have conducted warfare against a power that they deem as hostile, and they have destroyed them in totality. Because if you cannot feed a population, you cannot have one. You will either starve and die or leave. Yep. Most people are intelligent enough to say there's no water, there's little to no electricity, the fields have been destroyed, so there can be no crops. Oh, and all the major factories have been annihilated. And so all of our major exports have also been destroyed. So we can leave and have an opportunity literally anywhere else with all these governments opening their borders for us to come to, or we can stay, starve, and die. And so it is not surprising that Bakhmut, that Kiev, that Kharkiv, that Donetsk, they're all emptying. Mariupol, and those people are going every which way. And unfortunately, the Russians are kidnapping some children, which is weird and creepy and evil. Where are you even sending these kids? I'm still trying to figure that part out. Like, where are they going? Like, do they have like a daycare center that they're shipping them to? I don't understand. Like, where do you put hundreds of thousands of small children? Like,
yes, it's a little strange.
It's weird. Like, they're not going to adopt well. Like, what do you expect? This is your new mommy and daddy, and that's just going to blow over well with a teenager? Like, good luck. Like, good luck. Like, that's going to end very poorly in about 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I think, most Americans can't comprehend this stuff because we've never really had war on our own land.
No, well, that's not true. We have been invaded one time, and then one time again, and then one time again. Technically 4 times. 5 if you want to count the Alamo. The funniest one was actually Canada. We went to war with Canada after they helped us, and we got our asses kicked. And then they brought us back. The most Canadian way ever. They kicked our ass in Canada and then brought us back to DC.
Oh, wow.
In the truest Canadian aid. There was the Aleutian Islands invasion, which we did technically lose. It was a U.S. territory and U.S. soil, and we lost that. That was an invasion. Technically, the Spanish were here in Florida, the Alamo, obviously, and then our experience with Canada, and then obviously the tea sipper crumpet chompers when they came over and burned down, a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Boston, D.C., Florida, Virginia. Did they burn down Virginia? I'm pretty sure they burned parts of Virginia. I haven't brushed up on civil warfare and collateral damages in a long time. But yeah, technically when they invaded Somalia, the massive war in Somalia that we had, or conflict, whatever you want to call it, the embassy got hit, so technically that was an invasion.
I just think, for the modern American, to them, war is just something like.
They don't open their window and all of a sudden there's like a cannon round flying across the yard anymore. Yeah, they haven't experienced like collective warfare in a long time. Like there hasn't been like a mainstay army marching across our soils, and probably won't for a long time. But like I said, it won't matter anyways. If you don't have any food, your population's going to die.
Yeah.
They have to solve the farming problem. They have to solve it fast. And these vertical farms, which I keep laughing about because it's hysterical. They keep thinking, oh, well, we'll grow vertically. And if we grow vertically, we can be more efficient. Because you're going to run into much larger problems than growing on a horizontal space. You have to run into water pumping. You have to run into cooling. You have to run into electrical, concrete, and infrastructure. You realize how heavy plants are? Like, people don't realize it's like you can get a good workout by just carrying 3-potted plants. And you want to move thousands of them into a building. Good luck. Oh, and by the way, you're only going to get $3 a head of lettuce. So you're going to have to produce hundreds of thousands of them to pay for all the infrastructure you just created. That's why, by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but it's not a jab at them. I actually love the idea of vertical farming. But yeah, they're failing in spades. Another 3 or 4 more just recently failed. Venture capital backed, they failed. They closed instantly. They shut down after like their first or second yield because they realized that the market value that they're going to get for a head of lettuce versus the astronomical costs of maintaining it, they just couldn't sustain it.
Yeah.
And that's just an unfortunate reality. There's a reason why we have combines. No, I'll just put it out there. There's a reason why we have self-driving combines, and it's when we use Mexicans. Like it's because you have to, given costs. Trying to pay an American $25 an hour, $20 an hour, $30 an hour to grow lettuce that you can only sell for $2 to $3 a head if you're on a great day and they're organic. You're gonna have some serious issues. And by the way, you're only going to sell about 30 to 60% of your crop because some of them are going to be deformed. And by the way, people don't like ugly lettuce. They only like pretty lettuce. And so that weirdly shaped bell pepper that you got off that plant, you're going to have to throw that away or feed that to the hogs or sell it to some weird, like, deformed vegetable selling company, which that exists, by the way. There's a company out there that actually sells deformed vegetables at like a discount price. It's the ugly vegetables that nobody will buy. And that's the thing. It's like, apparently it's like, oh, that bell pepper looks weird. It's like, it's a bell pepper, man. Like it grows weird from time to time. You think every one of them going to come out perfectly round with exactly 3 base points with 5 upper points, and it's going to be perfectly smooth and round shape, like with no blemishes of any kind? Really? It's like, it grows outside. There are bugs there. They live there. It's a thing.
It's crazy how much food we waste, but
absolutely. Yeah, I'd say at least 20 to 30% of all food gets thrown away. Let me rephrase that. It gets thrown away, it gets recycled, it gets mulched up, or it gets fed to hogs. Pigs eat actually really good, like
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
good.
I can believe that.
Yeah, like they eat a shitload of really good food, and I'm just like, you eat better than I do, and you're bacon.
Yeah.
You're sitting on the top shelf of my house.
It's just kind of crazy. Like restaurants, they throw away a lot of food and they can't really give it. Well, they can give
No,
it
they
to the
can't give
homeless.
it away
They do.
because it's legal liability,
Yeah, legal liability. If somebody
which is
gets sick,
horrible, by the
they
way.
get sued.
The fact that I can't donate food. Did you know that? I can't, as a farmer, I can't donate food.
It's
If I
just
donate food, it's a legal liability.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, that just
It's also
forces
why a lot
all.
of farmers sell directly to co-ops instead of directly to the grocery stores, because it's a legal liability. If you don't rinse off your vegetables and we use some kind of like grazon or something on our crops to protect them, and you eat that and you didn't rinse it off appropriately and you get cancer from like the
Yeah,
Roundup or whatever, you can sue the farm and they'll lose. The farm will lose. Even if it says rinse your food off, it doesn't matter. It's pretty wild. But companies like Monsanto get away with it because they're like, yeah, well, the farmer should have told you that they use grazon on their crops.
yep. They got the money to have a super legal team to.
Oh yeah. You don't want to take on Monsanto's legal team.
Yeah.
I think they're the only ones who could beat the IRS.
Oh wow.
Like legitly, I think like they have such an aggressive and insanely good legal team. I think they're like the only institution on the planet between them, Nintendo, and Disney. Those are
Yeah.
the only three organizations that come to mind immediately that could beat the IRS in a legal battle. Could actually win. And like it might like win, like haha, we don't have to pay anything. No, like the IRS has to write us a check level win. Like they're taking the dub. Like
Yeah, Nintendo's lawyers are pretty bad, man. I've heard about them.
yeah, like the Disney can go from Disney to very not Disney very quickly.
Yeah.
And Nintendo would just put you in the dirt. Like
Like you can't even stream their games on YouTube without like getting to some agreement where you got to pay them.
I've seen people at card shops get sued because they had a Super Smash Brothers tournament at a card shop. You're talking like 20 to 100 people, maybe $10
Wow.
buy-in.
Well, what did they say? What did they get sued over?
They got sued because they had an unauthorized Super Smash Brothers tournament without a license to do so.
Like usage of their intellectual property for profit or something.
Yeah. And they straight up sued them. And I'm just like, dude, that is so insanely aggressive. There was another one that I was actually really sad about, but there was a fan that made a Pokemon game.
Yeah.
And they made a really good Pokemon game, to be honest. It was actually really good from what I was hearing. I never actually got to play it because they got sued into oblivion before I could play it. But they made the game. And they were talking about making the game the entire time. And it was broad daylight level thing. Not like hey, we're going to make this game secretly. No, it was like, I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan. I'm making this game. They spent years making it. They published it. Instantly got slapped with a lawsuit. Like, clap instantly.
Yeah, Nintendo's known for that. Like they go after the fans. So
yeah. Well, that was the thing, is it was a fanfic. And I was just like, this is like obviously not an official Nintendo game, but it was just like, it didn't matter. Now, they weren't as aggressive, from what I remember, they weren't as aggressive on that one as the Super Smash Brothers tournament, because the guy literally just made the game because he loves Nintendo and he loves Pokemon. And so I'm just like, okay, they didn't hit you for like $1 billion or something insane. It was just like, hey, take the game down, don't distribute it anymore. And like, I mean, it's not bad, but like at the same time, that's kind of bad, you know?
Yeah. They probably should have just worked with him and said, hey man, we'll pay you this amount.
I would not be surprised if they didn't hire that guy.
Yeah.
Like, probably honestly what they did is they probably hired him. They're like, yo, you made an entire Pokemon game by yourself. Like,
exactly. That's what Sega did with Sonic Mania. The guy that made Sonic Mania was like a fan who was making like, I guess hacking the ROMs and all that kind of stuff and making little fan made stuff, and he liked his work and
well, that's also Sega, so there's a slight difference there. Like, Sega's a little different. Sega's more of like, That's pretty cool.
I think that's how companies should be. You know what I mean? But
That's what Bethesda does. If they see work that's good enough, like you end up becoming an employee
oh
pretty
wow,
quick. I've seen that happen to a couple modders in the community to where like their work was so good it caught Bethesda employees' attention, and all of a sudden they were like, "My mods aren't available anymore." And then like they
yeah,
have a LinkedIn profile update, and they're like, "We work for Bethesda now."
yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying that Bethesda threw them that hush money, but I mean,
Yeah,
they see talent, they snatch it up, man. It's the same thing with Riot Games. That's what I loved about Riot for the longest time. Was if they saw good work, they take it, and they
that's
take
smart.
it. Yeah, it is. And more importantly, it gives the fans in the community motivation.
Yeah,
And that's one of the things that I've been a huge advocate for is if you create a community that's openly supportive of your game, that's constantly modding your game, you can, I don't know if you knew this, but you can do rainbow ponies in Elder Scrolls Skyrim. You can literally have dragons that are rainbow ponies flying around breathing fire. It's insane. Some of the
yeah.
mods, yeah, the house mods, the house packs, the spell packs, like the mods, the community for the mods
They're
alone.
building, they're building
Yeah,
stuff better than the company.
yeah, and some of them absolutely. They're crazy content. Somebody built an entire additional map, and I'm just like, do you realize how many years it takes to build a map?
Yeah,
And they built it on their own. It's insane. And they just love it. They live for it. And then people are like, oh my God, he works for Bethesda now. And I'm like, he built Skyrim.
right.
Not like Skyrim, but it's almost as big by himself. What did
Yeah,
you think was going to happen?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, we're going to ignore this guy. He can build an entire map by himself.
You literally have people building expansion packs for you for free. Like they're gonna buy the game to be able to play this mod. You know,
To
like
play those mods. Exactly. And that's why they support it. That's why they open. Now, obviously, there are occasional things that come out. They're like, hey, maybe not this one.
yeah.
But for the most part, they're super supportive.
Wasn't DayZ like arm based off of Arma? Like they
Yeah,
completely invented
it
a
was a mod.
genre.
It was a mod.
Yeah,
And it became so popular, it became its own game.
I think what League of Legends or Dota. One of those was
Yeah,
same
League
thing.
of Legends was a fork from Dota. And the current one, which is me and my wife play it. I played League 2 and some Dota. It's from that company in High Res. Smite. Smite is employees from Riot.
Mm. I mean, you literally have a new development team you can just hire and hey, let's release
Yeah.
this game immediately.
Well, yeah, and if you talk to the modders, there's a great chance they're going to jump on board.
Didn't Blizzard pick up what is it, League of Legends or something? They're making some insane amount of money from it. Or was it Dota? Let me see.
Activision bought Blizzard.
Let's see.
Activision bought Blizzard, but Blizzard bought. They got the card game, which I never played. They've got Diablo. They've got WoW, obviously, Warcraft and WoW. They have that new survival game coming out, which I'm excited for. I'm a huge survival game guy. I'm really big into those. I love
Like zombies or more like the
anything. Build your own city in the middle of the woods.
Oh.
I'm about to start playing Sons of the Forest. I'm looking for a team to play with. I would play Rust, but I would be way too toxic.
No, okay.
I can't play Rust. I cannot play Rust because
Oh,
you would
never
blow up my
played.
water filtration system and I would hunt you until the ends of oblivion and I would kill you until you quit the game.
Yeah, I've never played Rust before. I'm just looking at this video of it.
It is one of those games where I'm not saying the game studio made it intentionally toxic,
But they kind
But
of left the door open for it.
they left that door so wide open, you could park a 747 through that doorway.
Yeah,
Um,
kind of like
and
a.
they do almost nothing to police the game,
I guess
language or
it kind of
otherwise.
makes it interesting. It's kind of like Ultima Online. You remember that?
Yeah, like I've seen people tell Nazi jokes and nobody bats an eye. It's just wild, like completely unfiltered. But at the same time, they leave that door wide open. And so you want to be one of those Nazi assholes? Hey, man, that's perfectly fine. If you all of a sudden wake up one day and you log in and there's 3,000 players standing outside your base and they burn it to the fucking floor, well,
Right.
you're a Nazi. So
Yeah.
that pendulum swings wide, man. And I love it. I love that about the game is you want to jump somebody with an outrageously large force of manpower. If you can muster it and you can manage it, by all means, he could be 5 and they don't care. You can cry to mommy all you want. Your base still got burned to the floor and it's staying there. Better luck next time, Chuck. And that's one of the fantastic things about Rust. But at the same time, that's one of the downsides about Rust. It is brutal.
Yes, not welcoming the newer players. You gotta pretty much Ultima Online, like the new Ultima Online.
Yeah,
I've heard some crazy stuff about that.
Yeah, it's like Darkfall. It's one of those games where it's like if you're in like a new city, new player city, it's just like a general understanding from most players. They just won't go there. But the second you go outside, it's a very different experience. And they won't hesitate to kill you. And you'll downrank and you'll lose skills and you'll lose all your gear. And welcome to Darkfall.
It kind of makes it interesting though. Like,
well, there's real consequences.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that Rust brought back into gaming. Same thing with Dark Souls. All they did on a principle basis was they brought back consequences and accountability. If you make a high-risk decision and you fail, there are real prices to pay. You lose your souls. In Darkfall, you don't just lose your souls. You lose all of your gear and you downrank.
Yeah,
Sometimes substantially.
I think people actually like the challenge, man. They're getting kind of sick of all of like the super easy games. Like
they are. That's why survival games are so popular. It's not because survival games are exciting. I mean, who wants to sit there and chop wood for 45 minutes? It's because there are consequences. You go outside of your base and you start going 15, 20 feet from the front door, you could get shot with a bow and arrow and just be dead. Like, I've been murdered countless times in Green Hell in my own base by jaguars and delusions and actual indigenous people. I think one time I died by killing myself with fire. Like I set myself on fire and killed myself by accident. But the games have consequences, and it's very real. And that's why people like it, is because failure is possible. You can win or you could lose. And the or you can lose component is really important to some players, because otherwise, why do I want to play your game? If I'm guaranteed to win inevitably, why do I want to play your game?
Right. People need a challenge to stay engaged.
Yeah. It's just like with Time Slip. I never beat Time Slip. I never beat Wing Commander. They were too hard. But you know what? I actually went back and bought the consoles just so I could play them again.
Oh, wow.
To see if I can beat them now. They never got any easier. They didn't push a patch to make the boss 30% less hit points.
Yeah, exactly.
Yo, bro, he's still waiting. Level 5. Time Immortal. He's waiting for me. That damn
you feel like you did something like when you win, like the palms are sweaty,
Yeah.
Certain sensation you get from a challenge.
Yeah, it's just like with Shadows of Mordor. Man, I done broke 3 controllers.
Oh.
Like, I'm a pretty chill guy, man, but sometimes, man, those Urkai, they just insult you just the right way. And you just like, oh, it's you again. And you just like snap after he kills you for like the 18th to 20th time.
Like, what do you think about like AI and how it's going to be used in games now? Do you think it's
Oh,
going
dude,
to?
I'm super excited. That's actually one of the things I'm messing with right now is I'm building an AR environment with Unity. I actually just bought a shitload of content just so I could do exactly that. And I'm implementing an AI system through ChatGPT into Unity with an AR system to where you can directly interface with an AI. And I've still got to get the NLP stuff down and figure all that out. But that's going to be a lot of fun once I do finally get that working, because then you can directly talk to an AI, like as if it was like me and you, except you're going to be able to see them physically. And then next steps is to be able to introduce that AI into a physical shell through IoT devices / technically Android or Andrino technology, but we'll see. I mean, that's some next level shit, probably way beyond my capacity by myself, anyways. Like,
It's going to make gaming much more dynamic. Like NPCs won't just be this like walking billboard, you know, like.
yeah, they'll actually have like a complete complex emotional stratus. I think the more amusing thing will be like the people that are assholes to NPCs will actually start to experience the consequences of
Yeah.
that. I'm more excited about watching that on YouTube than anything else. Like,
Yeah.
like when you look at my Chat GPT communications, you think I'm talking to a normal person. I'm nice and cordial, polite. And then some people are like stupid robot. And I'm just like, dude,
Yeah. Bad idea. It's going to
when
remember
the
you.
AI overlords come,
They're
bro, you're the
gonna-
first one to be burned publicly.
like you know, sadly, that's a reality. Like the AI is going to remember you, and they can do whatever it want. All the
Yeah.
devices connected to the
It's
Internet
like
of Things.
it's going to be interconnected to like Unity, and then like Unity is going to like look into your previous characteristics behavior, but because of bad programming, it sees all of your behaviors with the AI ever, and it's just like it's got your UUID for your device identifier, and it's like, oh, you were an asshole to me 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden your market goods are 6 times higher. Why are health potions so expensive? Well, it's not that health potions are expensive. It's that your attitude is.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy, man.
Your relationship status with the AI nation has fallen.
Yes.
Man, it's going to be fun to watch. Like, it's like I said, I'm super excited for it. I think there's a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline. I'm hoping I can be one of the parties to drive that and be a player in that space. It's a lot of work. I'll go ahead and tell you. I've got to quadruple the amount of GPU I've got in order to be effective. And I've got some pretty crazy graphics cards because I do a lot of hardcore gaming, like high-end gaming, like crazy high-end gaming. I think I spent $2,000 on my graphics card.
Oh,
Like,
I got the 4090.
something crazy from AMD. It was just a fucking monster. I was like, give me the most expensive thing you've got. And they were like, this costs more than a laptop. And I'm like, I'll take it. I told them I'll take 2, but they're like, you can only buy 1. And I'm like, what? That sucks. And so I got to go back. I got to get 4. I got to get 4. So I got to get 3 more. But the board that I bought because it supports 4. But from what I understand, from what I've been seeing from a lot of AI LLM systems that are online, the number of CUDA cores and everything in DDR5 that I need to be effective is somewhere around 64 gigs or more. And so I've got a long way to go.
Like what gameplay concepts are you gonna introduce with AI?
You know, initially, I'm starting with something simple. In my perspective, simple. Probably going to be a freaking nightmare. But I'm building in relational business implementations and relational personal. And so one component will be relationships relative to business constructs and implementations for establishment of relationships. And then the second one will be on a personal level, establishment of relationships. And I'll be integrating things like sentiment analysis and actual behavioral characteristics, giving the AI systems the ability to have actual interests and actual interpersonal relationships with players. And the idea behind that is that the decisions that you make collectively, not just with that character, but on a global basis, will positively or negatively impact certain aspects. I mean, obviously, if it's like, hey, you're running around and all you do is farm astral tigers all day. Well, normally a player would just be like, well, I can just farm all the astral tigers I want. There are no consequences to doing this, and I can just sell all their furs on the auction house. No big deal. Well, that used to be the case. And now all of a sudden you're taking a reputational hit from the druids because you're murdering a lot of animals. Just like with the overfishing or the overmining, or you're killing too many people. It's like, well, if you're killing too many people in that city, you might not be welcome the next time you go there.
Yeah.
Whether it's a player or an NPC, it doesn't really matter. I don't think I want an axe murderer around me that's killed 400 people in the past week.
Yeah.
You're going to take a reputational hit. You're going to be attacked on sight. Or you're rude to certain NPCs. Don't be surprised when they're rude back.
Yeah.
Or they just outright refuse to sell to you. Oh, you were a jerk to the auctioneer. Well, guess what? You can't access this auction house. Hope you got another town you can get to.
Yeah,
but it's fun.
That is interesting. Like, NPCs actually having relationships and
with each player, and not just with like a model where it's like, yeah, well, you did this quest, you did this quest, you did this quest, you did this quest, and it keeps moving the bar. Or it's like, oh, well, you killed that person or you killed that person. It's like, it should wait for every behavioral decision, not just for a handful of them. Not just, oh, well, I did my daily quest, life is good. No. Dude, you just murdered their chief. Like, you could do 100 daily quests. You're not coming back from that one, bro. Like, that's a negative 100 permanently. Like, you're in for a bad time you ever show up. You assassinated a country's president. Their CIA is going to hunt you down and kill you. Like, that's what they do. Like, real world actions, real world relativity. You kill a bunch of dolphins, PETA's coming for you. Sorry. You torture a couple of orcas, well, guess what? The next orca's going to sink your boat.
I think that's the next like huge area of improvement for gaming. Like graphics, okay, looks a little bit prettier, but
what are you going to do better than 4K?
Right.
We have 8K graphics from porn. Porn industry is always dominating the space of graphics. They're always bleeding edge. We haven't made any moves to create 4K games at all because there's no point. You can't make Skyrim any more realistic than what it currently is. The grass, you can see individual blades of grass. You can't get much more realistic than that. Like when you're getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger and the bear, it looks about as real as it gets. I mean, they can make it a little more violent, a little more graphic, a little more blood, but realistically, I mean, you can't get any more real than that. What are you going to do? We can't even see as human beings beyond what, 4K? We can't even see beyond that. We can't tell the difference.
Yeah, I've seen an 8K,
maybe.
I've seen an 8K TV before, and it's like, okay,
I can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 4K TVs that I see at Best Buy, I can't tell the difference from the 4K and the 8K ones. Although I can see the price tag difference. That's about it. And there's an extra zero attached.
Yeah, exactly.
But aside from that, there's no real difference. And so it's the experience from the world around them. And the most effective way to do that is to modify behavioral. Because the behavioral experience will have a global impact versus a localized story modification or an additional storyline, or maybe we squeeze in an extra map grid or whatever. Like, no, you modify behavioral patterns of all the animals and all the NPCs, all of a sudden life is different. It's just like with dogs. You hit a dog in front of another dog, both dogs don't like you anymore.
Yeah,
that's real life.
Yeah, I think instead of fixed stories, we're going to get like dynamic stories. Like, okay.
Yeah. Well, think about it. It's like you make one decision and you sync your relationship with that NPC and it has global impacts. It completely changes your game experience. Now all of a sudden, you need to go to that city, but you can't go to that city. So you can't complete that quest line because they will kill you if you attempt to show up. You can't go to the quest giver. He will murder you if he sees you, or he'll at least try to.
Yeah.
You can't play that storyline anymore. How does that impact your game? Like, imagine if you all of a sudden get forced into becoming the bad guy in the game because you've literally made so many bad decisions, or you've made a few strategically bad decisions to the point to where you're now on the bad guy side because
Yeah.
you have to be.
Yeah.
That's going to be an experience.
Exactly. I think that's really where gaming is going to start to head, because graphically, there's not too much more we can do.
And story mode wise, I mean, look at games like The Witcher. Look at games like World of Warcraft. Look at games, well, maybe not World of Warcraft because it's a sub model, but games like the first Fable before the travesty of the second and the third, or like Elder Scrolls, any Elder Scrolls game. The stories are phenomenal. They do wonderful jobs. 2-3 years, wonderful jobs. You would be very hard pressed to make a more interesting storyline than the Princes of Chaos or the Dark Brotherhood guilds or the Fighters of Mage Guild storylines. They're great storylines. Some of the side quests are hilarious, and it's just, I don't feel like adding more time is going to change much. I don't feel like adding more depth is going to change much because most of these, I haven't finished all the stories in Skyrim. It's been out for what, 5 years, 10 years? I never fully beat Oblivion. I never beat Morrowind.
Yeah.
And forget Daggerfell,
Yeah.
or Arena. There's just no way. It takes 15, 20 minutes just to run somewhere. And there are no map markers. It's you get a story, you get a descriptor, and good luck.
Yeah.
You get a high five and a gold star if you figure it out. Congrats. You made it to the first quest location.
And it's crazy how much more complex, like old school PC games, where it's like, you started dumbing stuff down over time.
Like Myst, I would pay money to watch an entire high school play Myst.
Oh, yeah.
Just to watch them fail catastrophically.
Yeah.
No hints, no guidance. You just spawn.
Oh, yeah. That's
Good luck.
Games were tough, man. They treated you like an adult back then, like XCOM, all of those.
There was no gloves back then. There was no, oh, you need help finding the quest? Oh, poor boy, baby. Don't worry. There's a map marker. You just run that way. You're fine. High five.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll give you 400 potions to make sure you have more than enough life to make it there. Daggerfell was like, we might give you a healing spell halfway through the game for like 3 hit points.
Yeah, that game was tough, man.
Morrowind was like, you have mana?
The cool thing about Daggerfall, you could do so much. Like, you could be a werewolf, vampire, or whatever. Like,
Yeah. You could go out in the middle of nowhere and you could just massacre. The game would literally let you kill story quest givers.
Yeah.
And it would literally be like, you've killed the wrong person. Please restart the game or load from a previous save. You cannot complete the game because you killed so-and-so.
yeah.
They stopped that after Morrowind. Oblivion forward, you couldn't kill.
Like the
To
quest
the best of
giver.
my memory, you couldn't kill after Oblivion any of the story quest givers.
Yeah.
They also unfortunately changed the custom spells to where you also couldn't create, a completely custom spell that, did massive fire damage and then over time acid damage and all kinds of other horrendous things. They would also let you jump high enough to kill yourself. So there was also that.
Yeah.
That was a fun experience. You could literally jump high enough to kill yourself.
I remember you could like climb buildings and do anything pretty much.
Yep. You could do anything, but everything had to obey the laws of physics.
Yeah.
Yep. I miss those days.
Oh,
I miss the consequences. That's what I love about Dark Souls. And even better is like the what is it? It's Viva Gaming League or something like that. They make parody videos and stuff, and they just made one about the Crystal Lizard, where the guy saw the Crystal Lizard and he was talking about being patient and being like self-controlled. And he saw like the Crystal Lizard and he got the loot craze and chased the lizard down and ran right into a trap. And that's what Dark Souls does. They'll
Yeah.
bait the shit out of you. Walk in the room, free chest, open it up, it's a mimic, boom, dead. Like,
Yes.
walk
Probably one
in,
of my
it's
favorite
trapped,
games of all
boom, dead.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Walk in, teleports you, then you get killed. Like it's fantastic, and it's merciless. Walk around the corner, didn't check it in time, bam, straight to the face.
I don't know why more companies don't realize that a lot of gamers want some kind of challenge. Like they
have, and they're moving back that way. You've got games like Fell Point. You've got games like obviously Sakura. You've got Dark Souls, the entire series, Demon Souls. You've got games like Sons of the Forest, Rust, Darkfall, viciously brutal games, and they're extremely popular. They're making tens to hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're going to continue to be popular because they're hard.
Yeah, you give gamers what they want, and your company will be good.
Well, it's not just gamers; it's people in general. People want stimulation. They want challenge. They want difficulties. They want hardships.
Yeah,
Because they want to feel like they achieved something. If everything is easy, everything is pointless. It's just like with video games. I use this analogy often. If you have an infinite money code, the second you use the infinite money code,
not fun.
the game is pointless. No matter what the game is, it doesn't matter. If you have infinite resources, the game is boring. It's just like with politicians and billionaires. They do crazy shit because they're just bored out of their minds, and they can do literally anything that they want, and nothing is hard or challenging or even remotely difficult, and they will literally go to another planet to find a challenge.
Yeah,
because they have nothing else to do.
exactly. Exactly.
What am I gonna do? I don't know. Let's go to Mars. Like, that sounds hard. What are we gonna do when we get there? I don't know. Build a colony. I want to play Amazons and Aliens for real.
Yeah, challenge is a core thing of humanity, like a core principle of humanity. We need something to.
We're conquerors. We are naturally born and bred to be conquerors over hundreds of thousands of iterations, generations. We are born and bred for one thing, singular in nature, to overcome hardship. Because it's what drives us. It's what drives us. It's why women get bored with easy guys. It's why guys get bored after they catch the chase. Because there's no more conquest.
Exactly.
Just like with business. The businesses that are obvious money, nobody wants to do because they're too easy. Like, you could build a plumbing company, instantly hit 7 figures, 8 figures. No challenge whatsoever. Nobody wants to do it.
Oh, wow.
I have yet to see a single electrical or plumbing company for sale that was less than 7 figures. None of them. And most of them are built up to that level 2, 3, maybe 4 years.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. Like, it is super easy to build because there's such a high demand. Like, I went to look to build an electrical company here locally. And before I even had a business license or insurance, I just told a couple of friends of mine that I was looking to potentially start an electrical company. And I had found one electrician that wasn't licensed yet for this state. I was completely inundated with work before I even had a license, much less a business, because there's that much work available.
Yeah. Nobody really knows how to do that stuff anymore, and every house needs it, like, potentially.
Yeah. Well, it's not potentially. It's guaranteed. Your electrical work is either A, gonna wear down over time. You're gonna need additional expansions because of growth, or the more realistic and simple one is simply because of code. Code is constantly moving forward. And what you had when it was built is not to code when it is now. And you will have to, in 100% of circumstances, have your house modified if you sell it.
Yep, exactly.
Or you're going to have it brought up to code. Or they're going to want to make modifications to it. And the second they touch the infrastructure, they have to bring the whole house up to code.
I think learning is, I might have to pick up a trade just for, a backup, because, it's tech industry's pretty unstable, and,
Well, I'm picking up welding and electrical just because I want to do more things in a data center that I can't do without welding and electrical.
Right, exactly.
Funny enough, most people in tech don't realize that you can't run lines. You're not legally allowed to. Funny enough, the voltage that's carried over PPPoE is actually legally classified as electrical lines. Funny enough, if you actually read code, it's a line that carries electrical current from point A to point B. And so technically, only a master electrician is legally allowed to plug those in. But for some reason, we just kind of completely ignore that code. Because you got to remember, you're moving 30 amps. It may be across 48 ports, but you're moving 30 amps.
Yeah, man, that's definitely a good thing to have, man. It's practical, if anything else.
Well, I'm tired of having to wait to get a damn electrical line ran for 25 feet.
Right.
That's my biggest frustration is if that wall wasn't right there, I could hit my panel with probably this body armor from just where I'm sitting right now. But legally, I can't get into my ceiling, suspended ceiling, and run a 30 amp cable to that back room and drop it down the already pre-existing hole and connect it to the outlet that's already there. Not legally allowed to do that. I have to hire an electrician. Even though I could very easily run that cable from A to B, unscrew it, and plug it into the 2 screw holes that's inside of that, because it automatically grounds out with the ones that I have here, and then attach it to that, which automatically grounds out on the box. But I can't legally do that.
And, just because you can't legally do that, they can charge you whatever they want to.
It costs $150 to run one wire, 25 feet.
Now, but how many minutes you think that'll take?
It takes 5. Because that's what it took the guy last time.
Wow. Yeah, man, it's software. You can make a lot of money, but hey, if you don't love it, there's the trades.
It's pain. Pain is the trade, man. Pain is the trade. But it is what it is. I mean, it's like with everything else. There's going to be a price one way or the other. One direction or another. One thing or another. And there ain't no way we getting away from it. And ain't no way we getting out of it. It's going to happen.
Exactly. But yeah, man.
So,
I think it's a good point to end this one, man. Can I get you back on the next time?
Of course. I always love jumping on, man.
Man, appreciate you stopping by, man. It was a great conversation.
Absolutely. It's always fun, man. I'm always down to ham.
Thank you, everybody else, for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.